Welcome back to the Baal Sham's Matan Torah with commentary by Rabbi Abraham Mordechai Gottlieb, who I'll be referring to as the Rabbi Shlita. We're on the top of page 123, section 25. The header reads, where do we find in the Torah that the children of Israel were requested before receiving the Torah to accept the mitzvah of loving the other? Where was the consent? Baal Shalom says, now there remains to complete what we explained in section 16 about the reason the Torah was not given to the forefathers. The commandment, quote, and love your fellow as yourself, being v'ahavta le'orecha kamocha, is the pivot of the whole Torah around which all the mitzvot revolve as they clarify and interpret this commandment. Since this commandment cannot be observed by individuals alone, but only through prior consent of an entire nation, therefore the matter, being the nation accepting it, extended until their exodus from Egypt, when they were suited to fulfill the commandment. And then they were first asked if each and every one of the nation agreed to take this commandment upon himself or herself. And once they agreed to it, they were given the Torah. Examine section 16 carefully. However, it still must be clarified, where do we find in the Torah that the children of Israel were asked this question and that they agreed to it prior to receiving the Torah? I believe this question is assuming the question of free will. Did we have Bechira? The mountain was put over us, so to speak. It seems that we were forced, coerced. Let's look into it. Section 26, bottom of 123. Header reads, it seems that God's invitation to Israel to accept the Torah does not specify what is required of them and what reward is being offered. And it's unclear that what is intended by a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Baal Shalom begins. Bear in mind that in the invitation that God sent to Israel, through our Rabbi Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, prior to the receiving of the Torah, these things, being the request and its acceptance of the Torah, are clearly exposed to view to anyone who uses his or her intellect. The invitation is as written in Exodus 19:5, quote, and now, if you will indeed listen to my voice, and if you will keep my covenant, then you will be my treasure among all peoples, for all the earth is mine. And you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which you will speak to the children of Israel. And Moshe came and called for the elders of the people and set before them all these words which God commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, all that God said, we will do. And Moshe brought the words of the people back to God. However, these words appeared to be unsuited to their task, because common sense dictates that if you offer a friend to do some work, and you want to get his or her agreement, you need to present to him or her an example of the nature of that work and also its reward. Only then is it possible for the receiver of the offer to examine it, whether to decline or to accept, because that's how we're built. We're constantly making a cheshbon. We constantly are making accountings as to whether or not we should do anything based on the pleasure that we receive. Generally, our accounting is rooted in our ratzon l'kabel, and our will to receive, because that's our chomer, that's our raw material. So it's natural that everything we do is based on the pleasure we receive. So part of our work is to rise above that, and to contemplate and meditate on Hashem's greatness, the Creator's godless, let alone the greatness of others, and to ask for the payment of the merit that is the refinement, to ask for more emunah, ask for more ability to love the other, ask for more power in order to nullify oneself and nullify one's desires before the others. For all of the Torah and mitzvot that we do, this is the reward we should demand of the Creator, says the Rebbe Shita, as opposed to wanting reward in this world and the next. The next world is related to the sphere of Bina, and Bina is corresponding to giving to give. Olam Haba, the next world, is not the afterlife that we fantasize about, practically speaking. The practical application of Olam Haba can be right here, right now, can be in the moment, but more importantly, over time, slowly but surely, it's a spiritual level that we achieve. The Creator wants us to experience eternity that is the correction of our soul while being in this body. It's not a matter of doing the simple things that we believe is enough, at least in the religious world, like pray 3 times a day and follow kashrus and keep Shabbos and the like. Those are amazing, huge things. But to be content with just that and not to discover oneself and one's soul and all that that entails, to correct oneself and desire to correct oneself, then that person, relatively speaking, is dead. Because to be connected to the life of our lives, the Creator, means to be involved in His work and to have His characteristics, giving, loving, and the like. But because we are ensconced within our desire to receive for ourselves alone, when we make the accounting and see that we're not going to get any pleasure for ourselves with this mitzvah or that learning and the like, so we don't want to, and we don't do it. If we can rise above that desire and do it anyway and go neged ratzon, against our desire to do the other's desire, in most cases the Creator's desire, then that would be most beneficial for us and the world at large, as we've learned, as we are all interconnected. The Balsam continues, but here in these 2 verses, we seem to find neither an example of the work nor a reward in exchange for the work. For it says, quote, if you will indeed listen to my voice, and if you will keep my covenant. And it does not make explicit what the voice or the covenant apply to. And following this it says, quote, then you will be my treasure among all peoples, for all the earth is mine. And it is not clear from this whether God is commanding us, that is telling us to make the effort to become a treasure among all peoples, or whether this, being a treasure that is a promise that is beneficial for us. We must also understand the connection here to the end of the verse, for all the earth is mine. All 3 translators, Onkelos, Yonatan ben Uziel, and the Yerushalayim Talmud, and all the interpreters, Rashi, Ramban, etc., are pressed here to correct the plain meaning of the scripture. And Ibn Ezra says, in the name of Rabbi Marinos, that the word ki, usually translates as for, here indicates although. So he, being Rabbi Marinos, interprets the verse as, quote, then you will be my treasure from among all peoples, although all the earth is mine. And Ibn Ezra himself also tends to agree with this. The Rebbe Shita says on the spot, this interpretation is very reasonable. It says that although all the earth is mine, that is, all the earth and all the peoples that live on the earth came into existence through the power of my creating them, nonetheless, only you will be for me a treasure out of all the nations. Nonetheless, this interpretation is unacceptable because it employs an unrecognized meaning of ki. Interesting. The Baal Shalom finishes this section saying, however, that interpretation does not correspond with our sages who stated that ki is used only for 4 connotations, being or, lest, but, and that. So how can it add yet a 5th connotation of although? And then the scripture ends, and for me you will be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Here also it is not self-evident whether this is a commandment for which one needs to make an effort or a beneficial promise. Furthermore, the words a kingdom of priests have no interpretation or matching expression anywhere else in the Torah. The essential thing is to define here at least the difference between a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, as there seems to be a distinction here. For according to the ordinary significance of priesthood, it is the same attribute as sanctity, and it is thus obvious that a kingdom in which all are priests must be a holy nation. It's a given. But then the words holy nation would be redundant. So why the distinction? Why a holy nation and a kingdom of priests? We're going to go into more detail about that in the next section. The next section is a bit longer, so save it for a different class. But to hint to the answer, to at least share some interesting ideas regarding the matters, the 3 general categories of the Jewish people are, Kohanim, Levites, and Yisrael. The priests, the Levites, and the general population of the Jewish people. Being that we have the lost tribes, and other than those that have the tradition of whether or not they are Kohanim or Levites, the rest of us are just Yisrael. We don't know if we're from the tribe of Naphtali, Shimon, Reuven, etc. These 3 aspects, though, have corresponding sfirot. Generally speaking, the Kohanim are Chesed, the Levites are Gevura, and Yisrael is Tiferes. Every partzuf being a spiritual system, partzuf meaning face, but it's a revelation of the Creator. And every level of worlds, sfirot, and soul, all these different parameters that we learn in the Chokhmat Kabbalah, the wisdom of Kabbalah, is just denoting different levels of experience of the Creator. And that experience is obviously within us, being that they are all levels of spiritual consciousness, because our experience of the Creator is directly related to our own experience as individuals, as Jews, as the entire Tanakh and all of our tradition and holy books are speaking about us. It's a spiritual roadmap from the Mata Lamala, from the bottom to the top, back to reach the top of the ladder, to have the Veikut, similarity, form, adhesion with the Creator. And that's what to be priests are denoting, being that because the priests, because the Kohanim correspond to Chesed, being loving kindness, the priests served not themselves alone, but others. They had a most exalted duty in the Beit HaMikdash, in the Holy Temple, and the like. And they served the nation of Klal Yisrael, and they served the Creator. They served the nation of Klal Yisrael through serving the Creator, as they were channels to bring great levels of abundance to the nation, and therefore the world. For us to be a kingdom of priests means that we too are to embody this aspect of altruism, loving kindness, service to the other, and to emulate the Creator in that sense, and serve the nations of the world. There might be a corrupted notion that the Jewish people, after a certain threshold of our progression, let's say when the Mashiach is here, that we're going to kick our feet back. We're going to be the kings of the world. Opposite is true. We are going to finally be the servants of the world. We can finally throw off the yoke of the will to receive for ourselves alone and actually serve and love the other like ourselves. To love our neighbor as ourselves. To serve the other. That's what we're trying to get to. The Rabbi Shita has said recently, and many times before, I'm sure, but stressing the importance and value of contemplating what that society and reality would look like. To actually imagine and to meditate on a world filled with love and unity and peace, where we all support and love each other. And I think just these thoughts, because we are where our thoughts are, creates a good space for our inner work and creates waves of shefa and abundance, of goodness and light for everyone. As opposed to, God forbid, contemplating and meditating on negative things and judging others, to imagine the utopia that is our inheritance, that is the destiny of the world. It's very powerful. So too, to contemplate being a kingdom of priests and serving the other, and getting the incomprehensible pleasure from serving the other, in order to give nachat ruach, to give a spirit of pleasantness to them, the Creator. So the Creator tells us this is our goal. Or is it? As there's a distinction between a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Again, we'll get more into it in the next class. But I also wanted to share, as I mentioned, that in a partsif, meaning the revelation of the Creator at any varying degree, in any one partsif, there is a distinction of rosh and guf, of head and body. And if you look at the parameter of the 10 sfirot, the rosh is gar, the gimel rishonim, meaning the 3 upper sfirot, keter, chochma, and bina. In the guf, the body, are the 7 lower sfirot, zat, the zayin tachtonim, 7 lower ones, being chesed, gevur, tiferes, netzach, hod, yesod, and malchut. So too, when you zoom into any detail of any system, you have another 10 sfirot there. Every detail of reality has the 10 sfirot within it, as those are the building blocks of reality, along with the 22 letters of the Aleph base, the holy Hebrew alphabet. Making for 32 paths of wisdom, as the Sefer Yetzirah says. 32 also being the gematria of lay, of heart, because the heart of the matter, the heart of all things, the essence of all things, is based off of these building blocks. And these building blocks, like everything in the world, is even more specifically rooted from His desire to give goodness to creation. Ratzon lativ nivriyav, which is keter. Why do I bring this up? Because in the guf, there is 10 sfirot, but the guf is 7 sfirot relative to the whole system. But in the guf itself, there is also 10, and we can understand the parameter that the top 3 sfirot of the guf, being chesed, gevur, and tiferes, are actually keter, chochma, and bina of the guf. With that said, chesed corresponds to keter, gevura is to chochma, and tiferes is to bina. Therefore, the kohanim, which are to chesed, to loving kindness, also have a higher corresponding aspect that is Keter. Keter is the Creator's desire to give goodness to creation. So the relevance to us in our work and ability to serve the world is to teach the world that his desire is to give goodness to creation. And this desire is most efficiently manifest through his Torah and mitzvot, which he has given to us as an amazing gift and tool to slowly but surely refine ourselves so that we can come to the state of loving the other as ourselves. So this is what it means, I believe, to be a kingdom of priests, to embody the Creator's character of chesed to the world, and to teach them that his desire to give goodness to creation is the essence of all reality, the intricacies behind it, and how that relates to our work and involvement in his Torah and his mitzvot. And then we'll go into a holy nation in the next class, God willing, and see further what the distinction is between the two. Till next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me just check the YouTube. See if there's anyone commenting. Any questions? Shkoyach. Shkoyach lecha. Shkoyach. I'm sorry for the video image. Sometimes it gets weird like that. Might have to read the class. We'll see. It's not so pleasant to look at the green fuzziness at the top there. But anyway, all the best.